Okay, this is part two on the labels of homosexuality. We just finished looking at PMYs, and now we're going to look at WC Rivers. So you have to put WC Rivers, and now we're looking at a social or biological explanation. So here they're going to describe the 1920s inverted female. So here we have the inverted female. Remember, this individual on the surface, according to society, is a woman, but you have that internal male. All right, so in this case, they wear strict tailor-made clothing, low shoes, so they're probably not wearing any sort of high heel. They have a bobbed hair. They do not wear corsets. Let's see. Some of the inverts, they can whistle, and these individuals are independent in her ways. They're drinking, smoking. So this woman here is smoking, which is a man-like behavior. She has a drink in her hand, which is a man-like behavior for the 1920s. Let's take a look at the male. So the male in question here never smokes, never marries, averse to outdoor games. This individual is fond of looking in the mirror, squeaking effeminate voice. So those are the characteristics there. This is an interesting one because if you know anything that's going to come up later, anything about the 1920s woman and the flappers, we are led to believe that the flappers were drinking, smoking, and independent in their ways. And you come to find out when you study this that the flappers play an interesting role, the flappers and the vamps, because they are engaging in these like behaviors. But the one thing we have to remember about the flappers like men. So the flappers actually play a contributing role in arguing indirectly that inversion is probably not a term that needs to be used because the flappers engage in these behaviors and the flappers are viewed as sexual icons of the 1920s. So you're going to see inversion get dropped, and then we're going to see a transition to homosexuals and variants for gay women. Let's move on to the next series. So this one is to pick the invert or the homosexual. This is a test. You want to think about the two couples, the two people in this relationship, and which one is the invert and which one is the homosexual. So in this particular one, I'll do this one for you. We have two women at birth, from birth. This individual has very man-like qualities, whatever it means to be a male in the society. Both of these individuals are in a relationship. However, this woman here seems to have female-like qualities according to society. So what is prompting this woman here to want to engage in a relationship with this individual as opposed to being with a male? So the argument here, there's a couple. This individual is predatory. This individual is the victim. This one is the victim of this one's advances, pursuing in the same fashion in the way a man in heterosexual society should act in his attempt to court another woman. So that's what's going on here. When we're looking at these, you want to think about the victim in the situation, and it gets complicated when we're looking at two males. So let's see this particular relationship. Married inverts. Let's see. So in this situation, how would we explain this scenario? So in this one, we see a masculine man, but the masculine man is attracted to a man who has feminine-like qualities according to society. Maybe this is a way for society to feel comfortable about this. Here's what I mean by that. If we have two men engaging in a relationship of some sort, physical, society is going to argue that that's a no-no, that's wrong. But we have to accept that historically we do have these relationships. So what's better? if we have a man and a male together, or we have a male with another male, however, the male here tends to have female-like characteristics in some bizarre way that still kind of conforms and accepts society's understanding of what male and female, roles are going to be. And if you're listening to this and thinking, wait a minute, is this why in a relationship there's always an argument for somebody being a top versus a bottom, somebody who is playing more of the manly role than the womanly role, and you always have to have that in a man-man, woman-woman relationship? Yeah, that's where this is going. Society is grappling with this issue, and it definitely is, you know, uh, changing the way society views, you know, the social norms of society, those constructs. What about this image? Now, this image I wind up getting from a Texas black picnic festival. I don't remember the exact situation here. So in this one, we tend to have some masculine males. They don't have any feminine-like qualities. However, um, they're homosexuals. Or do we use the logic that, okay, now this is where race is going to play a factor, and forgive me for this. If we accept society's belief that black males are scary, what then does that say about this grouping of men? What I mean by that is, let's just say these individuals were walking down the street and it was known that they were homosexuals. Does the logic of black men being scary still apply? What does it say about the way different races view homosexuality? How can we change characteristics of these three to make them more feminine? These are issues that will be addressed at a later class. It's bringing up the concept of race into the equation. Okay, what about this one? This image I wind up getting from a gay biker association. So if this is if bikers are supposed to be masculine, manly men, whatever that means, um, does it play out the same as these males? What do we say about the relationship here? Is anybody playing the role of the woman, or do we just simply not have that much information? What about this one? Look for the directions are telling you. Look for the evidence, look for the victim, look for the invert. So in this relationship here, we have two women. This individual is playing the role of the man. Is that a result of the internal man when the outward expression is the style of dress, the style of hair, the fact that they're wearing a tie? Notice the positioning of this woman. This individual seems to, have his arm protecting the woman. If you have to pick, and this could be a question, which one is the victim? Which one is the invert? Which one is predatory? We would go here. We would go, invert here. This would make this individual the homosexual. This individual, now, if you're wondering, well, how did that just happen? How does this one get the label homosexual and this one gets the label invert? This is at the point where these labels are starting to erase this one and primarily go at this, but you still have to explain the relationship in this with this particular couple here. So this one is the victim. This one right here is the invert. This one has the eternal ability to coerce this individual into a relationship, thus making them the victim. Let's take a look at this. Here we see the woman. We have two. And again, this individual smoking has the style of dress. This one seems to be more of the woman. This one seems to be the one pursuing. And this woman seems to be responding to the advance. So in this relationship here, get the invert, we get the victim. And that's what I want to ask you to do for the test. So let's just go invert victim. Let's skip invert homosexual, because then it just gets a little too confusing. And if you find yourself confused with this, I get it. I get it. I think that's the point, that society really doesn't have any really good explanation for any of this, and they're just coming up with the best solution and answers that they can. And there seems to be a lot of gray area, a lot of problems, and that's fine. So here we have a man and a man. This one's tough because we don't see any feminine-like behaviors. Both individuals seem to be smoking, which is associated with men. None of them seem to be whistling admirably. I don't necessarily know that that would matter. If I was using this one, and I have to use evidence, I would say the fact that this individual has his arm on him is playing the role of protector. So that would make this individual the invert. But this one's tough. This one's very, very close. This one's hard to gauge. What about this one? So we want to go with the invert. You have to use what information you have. This individual has more manly-like features, seems to be playing the role more. We could even, look at the amount of tattoos, and that could just be, an indication. Maybe this individual's hair is shorter. The red hair, maybe that's enough of an indicator. I mean, I don't know, but you're going to have to figure out a way to explain these relationships using some of the logic of the time, even though we're trying to apply 1800, 1900, early 1900, criteria to more recent couples. Another one that's tough. For this one, I would go invert. I don't know if I'll have like a tie as an answer. I'm going to try to lock you into a particular answer. Reflection on prior slides. Take a minute, think about that. It's okay to be confused because all of this is confusing. And I think part of the reason why it's confusing is because you have to understand male and female social constructs and what this means in society. We also have to accept that we're talking about 18 and 1900 society and how they define these social constructs. And now we're trying to take these social constructs and whatever, a male and female relationship is supposed to be within that particular belief system, we're trying to apply it to women or to men. I don't necessarily know that that works. So if you find yourself confused with some of this, that's fine. But for the most part, if I'm looking for anything specific, I'm going to be going with some basic info. Feel free to ask in class. I'm going to be going for the one that is the invert, and any criteria is going to work. I'm not going to use something that's too similar. I'm not going to use this. I will definitely use something like this on any sort of assessment. Some terms here. I think the significance of these terms, reason why I included them, is to raise the question again. These terms, which seem to be a little more recent in comparison to Ulrich's work, at what point are we talking about decisions? At what point are we talking about biology? If you're somebody that is identifying, are you making a conscious decision to do that? For example, if we're talking about Boomer the dog, a man who, identifies as a dog from Pennsylvania, what do we say about this individual? He's a dog, and he's saying that he's a dog, and he wears a costume. I know that doesn't make sense here, but I'm just saying, like, the identification. Society seems to have a problem. When we're looking at these terms, I'm just going to play devil's advocate here. Society needs to have some clear understanding why anybody would engage in any of these expressions, any sort of act. Society needs something that's safe. When we're talking about a person making a choice to identify, making a choice, if we go back to one of the other slides where they're trying to suppress their attraction, if it's a man trying to suppress his attraction for a female, and redirected to a male, that, according to society, seems to be a choice. And if it's a choice, society is going to be able to legally discriminate against you. Lack of sexual attraction. I guess that might be uncontrollable. The question here would be, why is that person? This individual here, external appearance for gender expression. This individual is not identifying. So the reason why I included this slide here is it's from society's point of view. These society wants to be concerned with the biology, and if there's any sort of reference that you are making a choice to identify, society's going to just say that, yeah, that doesn't count. It only has to work. Society will accept it if it's linked to its biology. So I'm not saying anything negative about these terms. I get it, but I am concerned with the way society views any of these expressions, identification, identity, and all of that stuff. Somebody, often you'll hear, oh, well, that, I identify as a this or that. And then, somebody upset with that would say, well, what's next? We're going to have people identify as animals. I identify as a pencil. And so I now expect you to treat me like I'm a pencil. I don't even know what that means, but it's just ridiculous arguments that I've heard. And again, I think the point here is for society to feel safe and comfortable and accepting overall, everybody's society, we need to link it to the biology, which I think is the point of all of these individuals. PM Wise, Carl Ulrich, they're really trying to make a connection to biology. Havelock Ellis. In this one, we see the sexual impulse is turned toward those of the same sex. Can you control this? Here he talks about a man can still remain masculine. So we're back to the manly man. Is that possible, or does society look at an individual with this look and say, yep, that individual is a manly man. They are always going to be attractive to a woman. Havelock Ellis is arguing against that. He's saying that doesn't always have to be the case. Notice here the question about women that comes up. And all of these theorists really seem to be concerned about man-man. When it comes to woman-woman, that's a little more complicated. As you see here, lesbian women are just viewed as diseased. Like, why would this woman want to be in this relationship? She should easily want to just get married, suppress her feeling for another woman, and just be in a situation where she is going to live in a heterosexual marriage. And it also could be an argument as far as a woman being able to hide easier. And you'll see that in one of the other slides where there's just not enough evidence because, lesbian women, the variant is able to hide a little more easier than the male. Some more work from Havelock Ellis. Here we're talking about germs, and the amount of germs can make a determination about somebody being a homosexual. You can just read. So here we have a germ argument being made. So here we're talking about the ratio of germs and male germs and female germs. So that to me seems to be a little biological. For our purpose, we'll just look at it as germs. Which is yet another argument, maybe kind of a stretch, but it's just a portion of Havelock Ellis's theory, which brings us back to these understandings that we've addressed. And part 3 will address lesbian women.